The morning sun hadn't yet crested the horizon when Parker heard the first tremor. Living on the edge of the frontier territories meant earthquakes were common enough, but this felt different. The vibrations came in rhythmic waves, accompanied by a sound like distant thunder that wouldn't stop. Parker limped onto his porch, his cybernetic leg whirring softly in the pre-dawn silence. The ranch stretched before him, 20 acres of red dust and stubborn terraformed grass that barely paid enough to keep him fed. 3 years since he'd mustered out of the Terran Defense Forces. 3 years of trying to forget the screams of the Battle of Proxima Station. 3 years of living alone with his memories and his meager herd of synth cattle. The thunder grew louder. Then he saw them. They came over the western ridge like a living wave scales, gleaming in the first rays of sunlight. Wings folded against serpentine bodies as they moved across the ground. Dragons, thousands of them. The Draconis. Humanity had learned to call them after first contact 12 years ago. A proud species, ancient beyond human comprehension, and currently flooding toward his property like a reptilian tsunami. Parker's hand instinctively went to his hip, finding nothing. He'd sold his plasma rifle 8 months ago to pay for feed. Not that it would have mattered against this many. The lead dragon stopped 50 meters from his porch. It was massive, easily 20 meters long, with scales that shifted from deep purple to bronze in the growing light. Behind it, thousands more filled his property, flowing around his modest house like water around a stone. Human Parker Chun, the dragon spoke, its voice resonating in his mind through the neural translation all Draconis possessed. We seek shelter. Parker blinked. Of all the things he'd expected this morning, this wasn't one of them. My ranch isn't exactly equipped for, he gestured helplessly at the sea of dragons, this many guests. We require only land to rest upon. Our migration route has been cut off. The Krezat swarm has infested the narrows of Velshara, the only passage through the Crimson Mountains suitable for our younglings. The dragon lowered its great head. We are desperate, human. We have been flying for 3 cycles without rest. Our hatchlings are exhausted. Only then did Parker notice the smaller forms scattered throughout the crowd, young dragons, no bigger than horses, their wings drooping with fatigue. One near the back swayed on its feet before collapsing entirely. Something in Parker's chest tightened. He'd seen exhaustion like that before, in the faces of refugee colonists fleeing the Vorlax invasion. He'd been too late to save them then, arriving at the colony to find only ashes and bones. The water pumps are around back, Parker heard himself say. Irrigation system covers most of the northern fields. The grass there is the thickest. Synth cattle feed is stored in the barn. Not ideal for you folks, but it's high protein if your younglings need something. The great dragon's eyes, golden and ancient, fixed upon him with an intensity that made Parker feel transparent. You would shelter us? Your dwelling is small. Your resources limited. We saw no other structures on approach. You have ... Parker shrugged, leaning against the porch railing to take weight off his bad leg. Got enough to share? Had a friend once, back in the service. She used to say that having little just meant you understood its value better. He paused, remembering Ava's smile. The way she'd shared her last ration bar with a wounded civilian on Kepler 442b, 2 days before the ambush that killed her. She was right about most things. The dragon was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, it lowered its head until its snout nearly touched the ground, a gesture Parker had seen in the cultural database. A sign of profound respect among the Draconis. The Horde clans remember kindness. Parker Chun of Earth. This mercy will not be forgotten. Over the next hours, Parker did what he could. He showed them to the water, opened his feed stores, and even brought out his emergency medical kit when he noticed several dragons bearing burn marks from what must have been a fighting retreat through Krezat territory. His supplies vanished like morning dew, but he couldn't bring himself to Cerdot by midday. His entire ranch had transformed into a temporary dragon sanctuary. The younger ones slept in piles, their scales glinting like precious gems. The adults stood watch or tended to their young, and several approached Parker with gifts strange metals from their homeland, star charts etched in crystalline tablets. One even offered a scale shed from its own body. "We cannot repay this debt with mere trinkets," the lead dragon, who had introduced herself as Velkara, matriarch of the Sunset Flight, told him as the afternoon waned. "But the Draconis have long memories and longer gratitude." Parker waved her off. "Just doing what's right. You folks rest up, then get your younglings to safety. That's payment enough." But Velkara's eyes gleamed with something Parker couldn't quite read. "Tell me, Parker-chun, what did you do before you tended this land?" "Soldier. Terran Defense Forces, 3rd Fleet Marine Division." "And you left this service?" "They called it medical discharge with honors. I call it too broken to be useful anymore." The bitterness in his voice surprised even himself. Velkara made a sound like grinding boulders dragon laughter. Parker had learned. "Broken? I think not. I see a warrior who still fights, simply on a different battlefield." She lifted her great head, addressing the assembled dragons. "Witness and remember. Let all the Horde clans know that Parker-chun, human veteran of the Terran Wars, has sheltered the Sunset Flight in our hour of need." A chorus of roars shook the air, and Parker felt the vibration in his bones as evening came and the dragons prepared to continue their migration. Velkara approached him one final time. "We leave scouts behind hidden, watchful. Should you ever have need, call into the sky, and the Draconis will answer. This is our vow." Parker watched them leave as dawn had found them, arriving a river of scales and wings flowing over the ridge and into the distance. His ranch looked like it had survived a siege. Grass trampled, water reserves depleted, feed stores empty. He should have been worried. Winter was coming, and he'd just given away resources he couldn't afford to lose. Instead, Parker smiled, the first genuine smile in 3 years. Eva would have been proud. 3 months later, when a Krezat scout fleet appeared in orbit and began descent toward the frontier territories, Parker stood on his porch and did something he never thought he'd do again. He called for help. He shouted into the empty sky, feeling foolish, but remembering golden eyes and a vow given. The sky answered. They came at dawn, not 2,000, but 5,000 strong, the entire combined horde clans of the Draconis species. They came with fire and fury, and the Krezat learned that day what humanity would learn in the years to come. The dragons never forgot a debt, and they never abandoned a friend. And on a small ranch on the edge of nowhere, a broken veteran stood watching ancient creatures honor a promise, and finally understood that perhaps he wasn't so broken after all. Perhaps he was exactly what the universe needed.